Hello internet friends, in this video I'm going to talk about the various classes in Star Wars Galaxies Legends in the hopes of helping you decide what to play. Now I'm not going to go hugely in depth on each one since frankly I haven't played every class in the NGE version of Star Wars Galaxies, but this video should hopefully give you some idea about the strengths and weaknesses of each one and what their main focus is. Bear in mind also that although this video is about Legends specifically, these classes are no different to the classes that were available in the live game and that are available on most NGE servers. Finally, a quick note, I'll be using the words class and profession interchangeably, but they mean the same thing. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting from the top left, first we have Jedi. As you might expect, the Jedi is a strong melee class with the ability to specialize in either dark side or light side abilities, or a mixture of both. You can focus on absorbing damage as a tank, blocking and deflecting attacks with your saber, or focus on doing heavy damage to the enemy with skills like Force Lightning and Force Choke. There are also crowd control abilities like Cloud Mines, which allow you to confuse opponents. You can Force Run at lightning speed and even Force Cloak for a short time to escape danger. Jedi also benefit from a quest series where the player must complete certain tasks to obtain their lightsaber and a very powerful Jedi robe, which adds additional content at the end game. Jedi is a fun and obviously very popular class. Who doesn't want to play a Jedi? But it's not without its flaws too. Being a pure melee class means that PvP can be a challenge. This is a game where most players are armed with ranged weapons and you don't have the option to drop your saber and pick up a blaster, for instance. Doing so would leave you severely handicapped. Also, it's a shame that the two roles a Jedi can play, tank and damage, have skills that so clearly identify them as either light side or dark side. Surely there are damage dealing good guys and tanky bad guys, right? Well, not in Galaxies. You can mix and match to a certain extent, but broadly speaking, the light side Jedi is going to be the better tank and the dark side Jedi the better damage dealer. It's just a shame. So bear in mind those kind of limitations in terms of roleplay and stuff like that. Anyway, next is the Bounty Hunter. Not a class I've personally played in the NGE, but according to my research, it's a class that is a ranged one with the option to use either carbines or rifles. Rifles cause heavy burst damage, more so than carbines, which allow for more sustained fire, sustained pummeling over time. Damage isn't the only thing bounty hunters can do. I've heard of bounty hunters who run more defensive builds, and there are certainly defensive options in the skill tree. Also, lots of traps for crowd controlling mobs and lending the bounty hunter additional utility in a group. Whatever skills you choose, however, the defining aspect to the bounty hunter is the game's bounty hunter system. Since bounty hunter in Galaxies is not just a colourful name for a guy with a gun and a cool suit of armour, you can actually track bounties across the galaxy, and not just NPCs, other players as well that have had bounties taken out on them. This is actually a very old system from the pre-NGE days when bounty hunters would track Jedi exclusively, but in the NGE the system was expanded to include all players. I actually prefer this since it makes no sense that bounty hunters only track Jedi, and it's more interesting for the bounty hunter since tracking different classes means that you have to adopt different strategies in order to prevail against them. Definitely a unique class and a lot of fun, especially if you enjoy pitting your skills against real players. The Smuggler is an interesting one since it's one of those professions besides Jedi that allows for effective melee combat. The way the game rationalizes this is that smugglers are dirty street fighters who use underhanded tactics to get the upper hand in a brawl, but in actuality you can use any melee weapon in the game. I've grouped with several melee smugglers, with the strangest one being a little Rhodian in heavy armor with a battle axe, but he was very effective, even if he wasn't what you might expect from a space scoundrel. If melee isn't your bag, then the Smuggler can use a pistol, doing good damage at close to medium range. Smuggler has crowd control abilities, but its primary role is damage. I should mention at this point that professions can generally pick up and equip any weapon, but the reason it's carbine and rifle for bounty hunter, melee or pistol for smuggler is that their skills won't work with other weapon types, so you're basically forced down the path of using a specific weapon because of the skills. It was probably done in the name of game balance, but the unfortunate side effect is once again less player choice. Anyway, back to Smuggler. Like Bounty Hunter, it does have a system in the game to make it unique, the smuggling system, and if you guessed that, well done, you're paying attention. This involves picking up missions to transport illicit goods across the galaxy, during which you can be attacked, with a reward of credits and underworld faction if you complete the mission. You can even take PvP smuggling missions where you'll be a mark for the aforementioned bounty hunters. It's a cool system, but as it currently stands, it's more of a flavour thing than anything else. I found the rewards pretty disappointing. The credit payout was not great. There are much quicker ways to make money, and the benefits of building up your underworld faction, they seem similarly disappointing to me. You do get a bit of innate armor for grinding up that underworld faction, but you know, it's not huge. But don't let this fact lead you to dismiss the Smuggler class. It's an enjoyable one. I just feel the class specific content needs a little bit more work. Smugglers used to be able to slice weapons and create spice as well, for instance, and that was removed with the NGE. It seems like SOE really had it in for smugglers. Only creature handlers and Jedi got a more effective kick in the balls. Anyway, I digress. Next class. The Officer is an excellent support class, but also a heavy damage dealer with powerful AoE abilities. The Officer's potent buffing abilities mean they are always in demand for groups, tackling difficult enemies, and they can call in supply drops to further enhance their teammates. There is always at least one Officer in Mos Eisley, for instance, calling in supply drops for players to use. Such is the effectiveness of their healing and buff stims. You can use melee weapons with the Officer. They have a number of skills to do with melee. I'm not sure how viable it is really. The guides I've read say carbines are better since they allow you to more effectively use your skills at the furthest range possible. A fun class in my experience. You really do feel like a commander calling in artillery strikes and stuff, picking rally points on the battlefield. Not to mention the satisfaction that comes from calling in a bombing strike on a nest of womp rats. That's really cool. Okay, we're on to the Commando. This is a versatile class able to tank or spec to do massive AoE damage. A great class for leveling due to this, since you can take out groups of enemies with ease, hoovering up XP by the bucket load. The Commando signature are the heavy weapons, the acid launchers, pulse cannons, that type of thing. Many more, only they can use them, and they make the Commando a force to be reckoned with. They also look badass in combat with great particle effects and explosions going off all over the place. The Commando has a unique mechanic called the kill counter, which goes up as you kill enemies, meaning the more you kill, the more damage you do. This is a class I'm just learning but having immense fun with so far. I've grouped with several Commandos who were the group leader for heroics, and they were a reassuring presence. They seem to be tanking damage just as effectively as a light side Jedi, for instance. If you enjoy the fast combat, big explosions, and copious amounts of XP, the Commando is the class for you. Now, the Spy, a tricksy, sneaky, annoying class suited to duplicitous, underhanded players who will do anything to avoid a fair fight. I'm joking, of course. It suits the Spy entirely that players choose to sneak around and pick their fights carefully with this class. They are a heavy DPS class, devastating when they hit you by surprise with either melee or ranged attacks. Their signature skill is their sneak ability, which allows them to remain invisible indefinitely. No other class has this ability. Jedi can do it very briefly, but the Spy's ability to remain undetected means they are forced to be reckoned with in PvP, striking when the enemy least expects it. They can also dominate in PvE dungeons. There are generally as many spies in the Deathwatch bunker as there are Mandalorians, sneaking around with impunity, camping the juiciest spawns. My first character when I joined Legends was a spy, and although I played him sub-optimally, I found it a great class for learning the game. Leveling fast, I could always escape danger, sneak to the end of dungeons, get out, completing missions very quickly. Be aware, however, there are always counters to your sneaky ways, and experienced PvPers will have ways of exposing you. I'm going to shuffle the trader till later and cover the final combat class first, the Medic. This class does exactly what you'd think, it heals, and there's no other class that's in more demand. If your focus is grouping with other players and you want to ensure you are always invited along to heroics, PvP battles, pick Medic. The class is actually a lot of fun to use. Unlike the earlier versions of Galaxies, you no longer need to craft the stims you use. They are all innate skills, freeing you up to focus on honing your combat abilities without fear of running out of meds. As a medic, you will always be trying to keep the distance, but that doesn't mean you're pushover. With abilities like stasis and the option to stack defensive armor, you can be quite durable. Neither is the medic an entirely defensive class. You can spec to do damage with various poisons and toxins, pairing the medic with a creature pet to draw aggro and tank damage while you apply potent damage over time effects. That's a favourite strategy in the game. After the Jedi, the Medic is my favourite class personally, simply for the range of playstyles it offers and options. Not just a passive heal bot, the Medic, in my opinion, is amazing. Medics also provide buffs for players, and they do this AFK in Mos Eisley a lot of the time. People will go there for their medic buffs. However, if you're thinking of doing this, I would caution against it. If you think it might be your main moneymaker, my experience on the Legends server, can't talk about other servers, is that not enough people tip regularly or tip enough for you to make very much money buffing AFK. It's unfortunate, but it seems to be the case. Okay, now we're on to the crafting types called Trader on the character select screen. This is actually a group of classes lumped together because they all involve crafting of one sort or another, and each of these Trader classes has 2 types of crafting that they can focus on. Are you confused yet? Don't worry. It will become clear. So, Domestics Trader is up first, and this class is split into 2. You can either focus on clothing or food and drink. Those are the expertise trees for this class, so you're generally going to choose one or the other. Got that? So for Domestics Trader, as I said, clothes or food and drink. Of the 2 choices, food and drink is the clear winner if you're out to make money, since food and drink are consumable items that are always in demand for players. Creating unique outfits or trying to reproduce the costumes from the movies with your tailor, that is fun, but it's a lot harder to make money doing that. The savvy player will always find a way, however. There are plenty of successful tailors on the Legends server. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult to get established, that's all. The Structures Trader is next, and they create either housing and furniture or starships and starship components. Both are viable, with housing and furniture being more straightforward and easy to understand. Starship engineering takes practice and a good deal of research to learn the various stats involved. Structures Trader is unique in that the XP payout for creating individual items, such as houses and factories, is so high compared to the other crafting professions. For this reason, players sometimes choose to grind to 90 as a structures trader, then switch to another of the trader professions once they're done. This may be something you want to do. If you do want to do that, check the bazaar for backpacks filled with all the resources you'll need. You can buy them all at once in a backpack. The munitions trader, that's next, focuses on either creating the game's weapons or suits of armor. 2 very lucrative areas of business, equally lucrative probably. Which you will choose will depend on just, your general interest, which you find the more interesting, but generally speaking, crafting weapons costs fewer resources, but is a little bit more complex than armor crafting, which needs more resources, but it's simpler. The engineer focuses on either droids or cybernetic components like mechanical arms and body parts. This might sound like an interesting choice, but in reality there is very little demand for cybernetics in the game, so crafting droids is usually where engineers choose to focus. Engineers also create a number of items that are constantly in demand. However, they create the speeders and stuff in the game, so you can always sell those. Generally, engineers create a lot of items, stocking their vendors to the brim. They make money through sheer volume, since the items that they generally sell are not too expensive. They just sell an awful lot of them. Finally, there is the entertainer. You can either be a dancer or a musician, buffing players for tips or putting on shows simply for the hell of it. This is a truly creative profession, allowing you to group with other players into a full-blown band or dance troupe. If you enjoy socializing and entertaining, this is the profession for you. But the inspiration buff entertainers provide is always in demand and the main source of their income. A quirk of the entertainer profession, however, is that you can choose to spec in buffing customers. That's your main moneymaker, right? That's the thing you're known for. Or something called drama. This is pretty much the closest Star Wars Galaxies gets to a joke profession, in my opinion, since it does allow you to have some combat skills as an entertainer, but you're nowhere near as good as a true combat class, and you would have to sacrifice your buffing abilities in order to spec in drama. I'm sure there are some dramatic players out there, and I salute your choice, but it's not really one new starters should consider along with the others if they wish to be competitive in PvP or PvE gameplay. And that's my high level overview of the class profession choices in Star Wars Galaxies Legends. I hope this guide helps you decide what you want to choose as you start your Star Wars Galaxies adventure. If it does, please let me know in the comments, and do like and sub for more vids. I'll see you next time.